Anybody here a Chelsea supporter? Nobody? Must be some Chelsea supporters, no?
Not currently, probably.
Well, actually, my first job in retailing was selling ice cream at Stamford Bridge at Chelsea Football Club. So I've had a few experiences in retail, selling ice cream. I also later was promoted to retail assistant in a fish and chip shop, and I sold fish and chips. And I've had a variety of retailing experiences since. One was with the AA, which you can see up there on the top right, and the Automobile Association sold a whole range of motoring goods, which included all sorts of things. Watches, travel rugs, picnic hampers, motoring accessories, atlases, books on all sorts of weird and wonderful things, including birds, history, geography, etc. We had a chain of about 40 different what we call service centres throughout the UK. And one of my jobs was to work out the optimal location of these different service centres. We also thought it would be a whiz-bang idea to open up some travel agencies. We set up a tour operator called Argosy Holidays, which I helped set up, and we had about 25 travel agencies throughout the UK selling a range of our own tour programmes and other people's holidays. I then moved on to your bottom left, Rank Travel, and that was a tour operator. We, if you like, made holidays, and we sold them through a large number of independent travel agencies and chains of travel agencies. So we had to pay them commission, and one of my jobs was to try and sort out point of sale, racking and display for our tour programs. I then later moved on to DHL, which is an express carrier, and we also have service centres in a variety of different locations. One of them is at Passar Seni. Have you all seen the DHL service centre at the entrance to Passar Seni? Anybody seen that? Right, thank you, good. Well, I helped open that, and the idea was that for travelling tourists coming to Malaysia, they could buy their Selangor pewter or their wooden arch frames or whatever, get them all packaged up in the shop, and then rather than carrying them home, they could take them to the DHL service centre and wrap them up, and DHL would send it back to their home country for them. DHL services are also sold through organisations such as mailboxes, etc., and you might have seen mailboxes, etc. Here in Kuala Lumpur. So that's my history in terms of retailing. Now I'll just talk about some definitions. I've got a variety of slides here, and I'm going to talk about terms that I think you need to know in terms of definitions, abbreviations, etc. I'm also going to talk a lot about technology. Technology like the chip that you're going to have in your ear very shortly, which will be compulsory. About things like 3D printing, which will negate the need for container ships and transportation and logistics as we know it. And also things like facial recognition, which you see on Facebook and in many other computer applications. So, start off with a few definitions, just talking about retailing. It's business activities that add value to products and services sold to consumers for their personal or family use. And a retailer is a business that sells products or services. Okay, well that seems pretty straightforward, if not very interesting. There were 4 Ps, weren't there, that we covered early on. What were the 4 Ps? Price, product, place, promotion. Right. The sexy one, and the one that I used to enjoy the most, was promotion. Because that basically involved dealing with advertising agencies, drinking lots of gin and tonics, designing TV adverts, and radio scripts and press releases. That's the glamorous bit. Pricing is quite technical, involves adding up a lot of numbers, and unfortunately most marketeers aren't terribly good at numbers. Product is interesting, and that's usually where the engineers get involved, and that's probably the most central of the 4 Ps. The most boring one, the one that's paid least attention to, and the least sexy one, is place. Now, it depends what you include in place. I include sales, because sales is a channel. Some of my sales colleagues get a bit upset with me when I say that, and they think that sales is on a higher level, but they're wrong. So, place is not the sexiest, but it's probably the most important, because if you don't have the right product in the right place at the right time, then you aren't going to sell it, and you're very dependent upon other people to retail or sell your goods or services. And there's a whole range of things which we'll talk about in the second part of this lecture when we talk about supply chain management and logistics. And you start to understand how even making a very, very simple thing like a bottle of water turns out to be massively more complicated than you realise. And there's all sorts of procedures and transport and logistics that need to be sorted out for the label, the bottle cap, the boxes, and all the rest of it. So place is critically important. And clearly you need to think about who your target market is and what's the best way of attacking that target market is. Increasingly nowadays, it's not through bricks and mortar, it's online. And online is definitely the way that the industry is moving. But people still want to be able to touch and feel and see the product. So for a long time, bricks and mortars will continue to be an important aspect of the retailing sector, which is good news for some way pyramid. I hope you can all understand my accent. I'm from the north of Britain, and I sometimes use words that other people don't understand. I'm quite certain Derek never understands half of what I'm telling him. I'm going to be talking about technology quite a lot, and one of them is the voice-activated lift.
What's the buttons? Oh no, they installed voice recognition technology in this lift. I heard about this.
Voice recognition technology in a lift in Scotland. You ever tried voice recognition technology?
No.
They don't do Scottish accents.
11.
Could you please repeat that?
11. 11. 11. 11.
Could you please repeat that?
11.
Whose idea was this? You need to try an American accent.
11. 11. That sounds Irish. No, American.
Isn't it?
11. Where in America is that? Dublin?
I'm sorry. Could you please repeat that?
Try an English accent.
Malaysian.
11. 11.
You for the same part of England as Dick Van Dyke?
Listen, yours on smart ass.
Please speak slowly and clearly.
Smart ass.
11.
I'm sorry. Could you please repeat that?
11. If you don't understand the lingo, away back home to your own country.
Ooh, is that talk now, is it? Away back to your own country?
Oh, don't start, Mr. Bleeding Heart. How can you be racist to a lift?
Please speak slowly and clearly.
11. 11. 11. 11.
You're just saying it the same way.
I want to keep saying it till I understand Scottish, alright? 11. 11. 11. 11.
I'll just take his head in your cow. Just open the doors.
This is a voice-activated elevator. Please state which floor you would like to go to in a clear and calm manner.
Calm. Where's that coming from? Why is it telling people to be calm?
Because I knew they'd be selling this to Scottish people who'd be going up for nuts at it.
You have not selected a floor.
Aye, we have. 11.
If you would like to get out of the elevator without selecting a floor, simply say, "Open the doors, please."
Please. Please. Suck my wally. I'm not begging that for nothing.
Open the doors, please.
Please. Pathetic.
Please remain calm.
Just wait for it to speak.
You have not selected a floor.
You know what's in these doors? I'm going to come to America. I'm going to find whatever desperate actress gave you a voice, and I'm going to go to electing chair for you.
Scotland, you bastard!
Scotland!
Scotland!
Scotland! Freedom!
Going up.
Right, so if you don't understand anything I'm saying, just please ask me to repeat that. Okay? Right, so there's a whole range of different examples of retailers. Tesco, Starbucks, Marks and Spencer's, IKEA. You know what a retailer looks like. One technical term you may not have heard is CTN, confectioner, tobacconist, newsagent. And they are small shops selling confectionery, tobacco, and possibly newspapers. Can anybody think of an example of one of those here in Malaysia? 7-Eleven, yeah, good, thanks. Right, now some jargon. The first one is point of sale. Point of sale is something which exists at the point where the customer buys something. And it could be a banner, a poster, a promotion, a bin, some kind of arch, anything which promotes the product. Another term that's associated with this EPOS, electronic point of sale. And that could relate to things like loyalty cards, which you swipe in and swipe out. It can refer to anything which tracks you as an individual. Now, when I worked for the AA, we had a system called SHOP, Sales, History, Order and Promotion. And what that did was enabled us to keep track of what people had bought. We did it in association with a magazine called Reader's Digest, and it was spectacularly clever. It's based on an algorithm which used predictive analytics to understand what kind of things that people would buy. And we discovered that if somebody bought the AA Book of British Birds, which was one of our top sellers, if we launched a set of commemorative plates of famous British birds like the robin, the owl, the eagle or whatever, it is quite possible that their probability of buying that particular commemorative plate was a lot higher than anybody else's. So we were able to target our marketing on those people that had already demonstrated an interest in that particular merchandise area. So very powerful. Tesco have now taken this on to the next level through a company called dunnhumby, and they are able to predict when you come back from the semester at university and go back home. So the way they do this is just by looking at family shopping patterns, and they can see when all of a sudden, when it's young ladies, when all of a sudden the family's purchases of shampoo, beauty products, soap, bubble bath and all these things go up. And then they can see when they go down, that means that the ladies have departed back to university again. This is in the UK. And similarly, they can do the same thing for the boys. This can be quite dangerous because they start to understand quite a lot about your personal characteristics, how big your household is, and extrapolating further, it is possible for them to infer possibly your sexual activity, for example. So, a wee bitty scary. Right, the next thing is RFID. Yeah. Has anybody heard of RFID? Not heard of RFID. You will do very shortly because you will all have a chip in your ear. And I'm not joking, this is a fact. You will all have a chip in your ear, I reckon, within the next 5 years. They use it at the moment for tracking dogs and cats. They also use it for hanging garments and many items in stores. DHL was a pioneer in this area, RFID, and we used it for tracking shipments in aeroplanes. We then discovered it was potentially a wee bitty dangerous because a terrorist could track one of our aeroplanes, stick a bomb in it, and it would explode, which is not funny because it did happen to one of the planes that I was involved in, Pan Am 103, which blew up over Scotland with some of the students from London Business School on it. So, pretty dangerous stuff. The thing with RFID is it allows you to track clothing items. It allows you to track pets. It also allows you to track boxes. So if you want, you can have a small container holding about 6 or 7 objects, and each one can be RFID identified, pass through a scanner, and instantly the store knows how many items you've got in this packet, what they are, what their expiration date is, what temperature they've been at. So if it's a bottle of milk and the temperature has gone above 35 degrees centigrade for more than 10 minutes, it will know that the fridge, that the milk will have gone off. If it's got an expiry date, which says October 2015, it will know it's past its expiry date. So if you've got an intelligent fridge, your fridge will know when you need to buy milk. If the fridge knows when you need to buy milk, it can order the milk for you. You don't need to get involved. It can send a message to Tesco, and Tesco will know that Mike Dent requires a bottle of milk. It can also tell whether anything has been dropped. If it's been dropped and it's a small pack of eggs, it's likely they're all smashed. So it can detect impact as well. So RFIDs are very clever things. In terms of security in transport, I think one of the first countries to introduce it will be the Americans, and they will introduce it for felons, terrorists or whatever. It will also be a method for fast tracking through customs and immigration. If you've been to KLIA recently, you'll see they're introducing electronic passport recognition facilities. So it'll be the same idea. So what will end up happening is that unless you've got the RFID chip, you won't be able to catch an aeroplane. And then you won't be able to catch a train, and then you won't be able to catch a bus, and then you won't be able to go into a shopping mall. So I reckon 5 years' time, you'll all have an RFID chip. And a lot of people have got them already. You just stick it in either in your wrist, subcutaneously, or in your ear. Another piece of jargon, SKUs. You don't really need to know too much about that, but that's what retailers use in their jargon, stock keeping units. I'll maybe talk a bit more about that later. Retailing wheel, that is the tendency for shops to start small, and then as more competitors come in, maybe undercutting them, low-cost operators, they tend to get forced up market. So if you look at organisations like Harrods, have you had high tea at Harrods in KLCC? For the guys, if you want to impress your girlfriend, or Valentine's Day or whatever, high tea at Harrods, KLCC, guaranteed winner. I speak from experience. So Harrods started off as a relatively cheap store and was gradually forced up. And it's true for many organisations, including Tesco and Sainsbury's. Another piece of jargon which you'll come across very occasionally, and I have seen it crop up in exam papers, much to some students' despair, because they've got no idea what disintermediation means. Disintermediation means cutting out the middleman. So if you've got a very long chain of distribution through distributors, agents, wholesalers, retailers and the final customer, and they're all taking a slice of the action, if you can cut one or two of them out, then potentially that's more profit for the manufacturer. So cutting people out is very good for your bottom line. Last piece of technical jargon is layaway, and that's where somebody pays a deposit on an item to be purchased later. This is very useful for the retailer because it adds a little bit of predictability. You know that the customer is going to come back, or probably going to come back. And if he doesn't come back, well, at least you've got the deposit. So in retailing, and again I'll talk about this later, one of the major problems is estimating demand. Trying to work out how many widgets you're going to sell on a wet Tuesday afternoon in Manchester as opposed to a bright sunny Saturday morning in Manchester. And there's all sorts of financial implications from having too much stock or stocking out. Who here is studying accountancy? Right. Now, studying accountancy, you'll know that one of the biggest costs on the ledger is inventory. Inventory generally is bad. It's stock that you haven't sold yet. So it's costing you money, and you really want your inventory managed extremely well. So you've got just exactly the right amount to meet customer demand. If you've got too much, you're having to pay the manufacturer for those items, although you haven't yet sold them, so that's extremely bad because that's bad for cash flow. Cash is king, and the main reason that organisations or retailers in Malaysia go bust is not because they're not profitable, it's because of cash flow. They're making profits on paper, but they don't have enough money to pay the wages or the electricity bill or the landlord, so they go bust. So cash is king. No cash flow, you're dead. So I don't want too much stock. Okay, well, I understand that. What happens if I've got too little stock? Well, if I've got too little stock, then I'm at risk of suffering something called a stock out. Now, if I suffer a stock out, that means that somebody that comes to me to buy something, I'm going to have to say to them, sorry, we've sold out. Does anybody here smoke? This is terrible. Nobody smokes. My uncle used to be one of the Marlboro men on the adverts, looking very cool, looking like a cowboy. But when I used to smoke, I used to quite often buy Marlboro cigarettes. So let's forget cigarettes, let's look at shampoo. You all buy shampoo. Right. What's your favourite brand of shampoo? What's your favourite brand? Yeah. Pantene. Good choice. I actually know a lot about Pantene because my boss used to be the marketing director for Europe, Middle East and Africa. I didn't plan that question, did I? No? Okay, thank you. Right, so Pantene. So you go into a retailer and you want to buy your regular bottle of Pantene and they haven't got it. What do? Find another store. So you walk out of that store and you go to another store and they haven't got Pantene either and you've run out at home. What do then? Buy another brand. Now that's extremely bad news for Pantene and it's extremely bad news for the first store you walked into. Now, if that happens at your favourite store once, not a problem. You go to another store, you can't find it there either, and you buy another brand. But when you go back to a favourite store when you run out of shampoo, maybe 4 or 5 weeks later, and they've stocked out again, you start to get a bit annoyed. And then you might transfer your custom from Tesco or Sainsbury's or Aeon or whatever to another store. So that's extremely bad news for that store. So brand loyalty, store loyalty, is a critical issue in retailing. Now I'm going to talk about supply chain a bit later on, but in terms of distribution channels, it looks pretty straightforward. You've got a manufacturer, a wholesaler, a retailer, and a consumer. So that's dead easy, isn't it? You all follow that? Unfortunately, this is what it tends to look like in real life. And actually, this is a simplified version. So you've got lots of different manufacturers, lots of different plants, lots of different locations, distribution centres, vans, lorries, motorbikes, all of which have to be managed, and this is all going in different directions because it's not only the materials that are going from the components manufacturers to the assembly plants, it's also those items going back, if they're faulty, from the plant, the assembly plant, back to the component manufacturer, or going back from the retailer to the manufacturer, or going back from the customer back to the retailer. So there's lots of different flows, and they're all going at different paces, different speeds, using possibly different modes of transport. So supply chain is a set of organisations that cooperate and coordinate to make sure that the goods and services are delivered to the final end consumer. And within that supply chain, many of the organisations may not know each other at all. They may have no communication with each other. They may not know of each other's existence. To give you one example, if I'm making motor cars, one of the things I need in my motor car to make it work is a spark plug. No spark plug, no car. To make the spark plug, I need ceramics. And the ceramics are quite possibly manufactured in a tiny little factory in Thailand.